All right, it's 7:05. I see all five commissioners are present. I'm going to call the meeting to order. First order of business, in consultation with our legal counsel as president, it's my decision to hold this meeting via Zoom in light of the governor's COVID-19 disaster proclamation. It's my opinion that at least one member of the board would not be feasible to meet in person. And we'll talk more about this later as it's on the agenda. In consultation with legal counsel, we do not need to make a motion on that. And so we will move to item 3 on the agenda of citizen comments. Are there any citizens that would like to make a comment? Natalie?
I had an email from a gardener, an Elks Park community gardener, and he asked me to read this. He says, please share the following with the board on my behalf. For the most part, the gardeners who rent plots spend a lot of time and energy working the garden and improving the soil. It seems unfair and unreasonable to limit the rentals to 1 year. I suspect Ridgeville would end up with a lot more unattended and unkempt plots. Thank you, Tom.
And who was that from?
His name is Tom Albrecht. He's been a gardener with us for a few years at Elks.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Tom. Any other citizen comments?
Hi, this is Gwen. I'm the G2T instructor.
Yes,
And thanks for having me at Ridgeville. I'm new. So dealing with the students, my understanding is there is a desire to have more beds at Ridgeville. And I think there's not really enough room. We need more compost bins, which I've spoken to Natalie about. And we need, a gathering place, which is where the picnic table is. And I think adding more beds, I really don't know where they would go because there's not a whole lot of sun. We have some lead issues in some of the soil. So in terms of adding more beds, I don't think it's a good idea at this time.
Anything further?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. I haven't seen you here before. This citizen comments is not an opportunity for a back and forth with the board. It's for citizens to make a comment, and so we're not really able to start a conversation back and forth. We do have later in the meeting, we have an update on the garden space, so we will get to that tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further citizen comments? All right, moving on to the approval of the minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes, September 8th, 2022 and October 13th, 2022. Does anybody have a motion regarding the September 8th, 2022 minutes? All right, I, Matthew Mitchell, move to approve the September 8th, 2022 minutes. Is there a second?
Morrell seconds.
Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Larson, could we do a roll call vote? And I know we were talking about staggering our voting order.
For the roll call votes as well.
For roll call votes kind of for the meeting. And I don't know, we can stagger it for every vote, or we can just stagger it for the meeting, but whatever.
Maybe I'll start with Braun for tonight's meeting.
Yes.
Alphabetical. Okay. Morrell, Morrell,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Anton, are you there?
No response from Diana. Natalie?
She is here and she can hear us. She's having trouble, I think maybe turning on her camera and speaker, but I'm texting with her, so I'll update you if we can get that fixed.
Okay.
Okay.
And is there a way you could manually turn on her speaker or mute?
I can invite her to do
I
it.
said
but
yes, yes.
Oh, there she
Yes.
is. Thanks, Diana.
Yes. Okay, sorry about that.
Thank you, Diana.
Got it.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on to the minutes from October 13th, 2022. Is there a motion regarding those minutes?
I move to approve the minutes from October 20, I don't know the date.
So Mitchell seconds. Is there any discussion? Julie, could we do a roll call vote, please?
Yep. Braun,
Yes.
Morel,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
and I'll still call President Mitchell last, okay? That sound good? Do Anton next
Yes.
and Mitchell.
Yes.
Great.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on to the approval of the bills. Mr. Rosinski, could you talk us through those?
Absolutely. Go through some of the unusuals. Auto Wares Group, which is bumper to bumper, a whole $12.98 a tail light for the F-250. Bella Consulting Group, that's equity consultant Aisha. As we go further down, Josh Cavalier is a replacement check. Lisa Di Battista is a refund. Hanson Roofing realigned and fixed the gutter at 908 Seward. Illinois Public Risk Fund, Workman's Comp annual fee. Jocelyn Lee is a replacement check also for a lost check. And that's it for the unusuals.
Is there a motion regarding the bills?
Morel moves to, approve the bills dated November 10th, 2022 in the amount of $23,237.11.
Mitchell seconds. Is there any discussion regarding the bills? Ms. Larson, could we do a roll call vote, please?
Yep. Braun,
Yes.
Morel,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Anton,
Yes.
and Mitchell.
Yes. And the motion carries. Moving on to item 5 on our agenda is approval of the petty cash expenditures. Brian, could you walk us through that?
Or Apple Incorporated, so IAPD, iPad Memory. Bill's Drive-In was burgers for our volunteers that work the Fall Frenzy. MailChimp, emails over 2,000. Meineke Garden Center is for Fall Frenzy pumpkins and straw for the garden. Johnny Price was our second installment of $150. He was the DJ at Fall Frenzy and he was outstanding. V&J Landscaping Service, more parts for our drive-behind lawnmowers. Walmart compost containers, 3 of them total. Maggie Weber was Bike the Ridge Band, and YWCA Equity Workshops, which Matt Mitchell and Natalie Sully are attending. Just so you know, I contacted Matt Mitchell again this month to get petty cash raised. Next month, I'm going to put it on the agenda to come up with a total. I'll meet with Jerry for a safe monthly total instead of tracking down Matt every month as big bills come in through petty cash. That's it.
Thank you. Is there a motion regarding petty cash?
Morel moves to approve the petty cash dated November 10th, 2022 in the amount of $1,866.62.
Mitchell seconds. Is there any discussion? Julie, could we do a roll call vote, please?
Ron,
Yes.
Yes. I'm not sure if you called my name or not. I didn't hear it. Sorry.
Morel,
Yes.
yep, got it, sorry. Rogers,
Yes.
Anton,
Yes.
and Mitchell.
Yes. All right, motion carries. Moving on to the monthly reports. We will start with Brian.
You want us to do October and November? You want
Yes,
to-
please. I think so.
Okay, my October meeting, just keep that date in mind so you don't get confused. In the last month, we have begun our fall program classes and hosted Bike the Ridge. Bike the Ridge was on Sunday, September 25th, and drew another large crowd at Ridgeville Park. School of Rock played for a couple hours and was also a big hit. Natalie Salee also scheduled our usual food vendors in the park, and the city of Evanston scheduled other vendors on the street intersections. All vendors appeared to have a good day of sales. The Ridgeville Foundation sold T-shirts and auctioned off a new bicycle as part of their fundraising activities. The maintenance crew's been busy preparing parks for the fall. We've been grinding leaves. We have been grinding leaves, and they will take down and store our stage, which is done now. On the agenda, you'll see mashup. We are registered and 4 tickets to the event. Natalie will probably give you an update on that. I discussed an increase with petty cash in the month of October with Board President Mitchell. We have several large items in petty cash that include mashup, City of Evanston water permit, Amex plumbing, that's an RPZ valve for ice skating. National Waste Service was a porta potty for Bike the Ridge, and Zoom was an annual renewal subscription period. Illinois Association of Park Districts have all the commissioners' surveys, Ridgeville photos, agency information, and financial data. The IAPD will now develop the layout for the agency brochure, which will be sent to us in October, which is now changed to early next week, which is mid-November. For your approval, once that process is completed, the application period will begin January 1st, 2023. On September 23rd, we completed Alice training, which educated us on what to do and how to prepare for 9/11 emergencies like an active shooter. It was conducted at 908 Seward and taught by the Evanston Police Department. We have incorporated several of the suggestions already and will make it part of our employee orientation program. Thanks to Natalie Salee for leading up this effort. That's October.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Rosinski regarding his October report? Okay, then can we move on to your November report, Brian?
Sure. Past month has been one used to catch up on all our outdoor projects as the weather has been above average. The maintenance crew has been grinding leaves, repairing lawnmowers, and repairing equipment and preparing equipment for winter usage. We will have one of our main garage doors replaced in the very near future on the maintenance garage. We ordered it last April, and it is in the current budget and should be replaced for less than $3,000. The Kubota parked vehicle ordered last year is still not in and may take months due to supply chain delays. We are now 29th on the list. We were 80th a few months ago, so hopefully we get it fairly fast. We will not have it for the winter season. As we look forward, and I know it's hard to believe, the crew is planning to set up the ice rink in late November to early December based on weather. The draft for the 2021-2022 audit is in our hands, and I'll let Treasurer Gibbs update you on that. AYSO has completed their soccer season at our parks and will be back in the spring of 23. Evanston Baseball and Softball Association has requested a meeting with Ridgeville to discuss potential use of our baseball fields next spring. I've been in contact with them, and we will meet here on November 15th, 2022 to begin that discussion. That's it.
Thank you, Brian. Any commissioners have any questions or comments for Mr. Rosinski regarding his November report?
Brian, do AYSO and EBSA, do they rent or pay us for the usage of the fields?
Yes, they pay us $10 a kid, and there's about 290, 300 children involved. So it's close to $3,000 every season.
Is that at
Got it.
Cayman Park, Brian?
Sorry, what?
Is that at Cayman Park?
No, it's at Cayman East, West, and Leiter.
Okay.
And I'm assuming is there a baseball field at Brummel too?
No, there's baseball field at Elks. There's a baseball field.
Elks, that's what I meant, sorry.
at Cayman East and West.
Okay.
The
Do you know which ones EBSA is interested in using?
They have practice at Cayman West most of the time. So the discussion will be interesting because in the summer, starting early June, we have soccer, our own program, soccer and T-ball. So we'll see what we can work out.
Brian, what are we doing with skateboarding equipment?
Skateboard equipment will come in for sign of snow. And water's going off in the gardens tomorrow.
All right, any other questions or comments? Thank you, Brian. Moving on to Mr. Gibbs.
Hello, everybody. I'm just going to work from the November report. Under notable activity, the good news is that the second installment property tax bills are showing progress. They're not out yet, but I would expect that they'll be out in a few weeks because as of last Monday evening, all units of local government had to review the tax extension calculations that were completed by the county clerk. I gave you a copy of the extension report. That's what we've all been waiting for. That's a draft that we have now. It'll become final and publicly available later this month. Our requested levy plus the 3% loss provision exceeded the PTEL authorized limits, so the county reduced our request to fit within the PTEL limits. However, the new law, which provides for the recovery of revenues lost in prior years due to things like successful tax appeals, added back an amount that exceeded the PTEL reductions by about $150. So we came out just fine with all of that. Just interesting things to notice in the report, the total assessed value of property in the district was reduced from 662 million to 609 million in the prior year, compared to the prior year. This reduction in the assessed value means that the tax rate has to increase in order to yield the same level of revenue to the district. And then with our levy request being a little bit higher than the prior year by the amount allowed under PTEL, the tax rate has increased from 0.107 to 0.119. When you get the final audit, there is a page in there at the very last page that has a 10-year analysis of assessed values and tax rates. So it's kind of interesting to take a look at that and compare these numbers to there. Just interesting stuff to look at. Our bank balances at Chase have again drifted down to uncomfortable levels since 50,000 was transferred from Wintrust to Chase since the last board meeting. And in the next few days, I'll be transferring some additional monies from Wintrust to Chase to cover this month's bills and the payroll. Last week, the Sikich, the audit firm, gave us a draft of the annual financial reports. That's always good news when we finally get to see those. I've had an opportunity to review them, and I'm happy to say that the figures match what our figures are. So I'm satisfied with the report. Typically, this review process has multiple iterations that take place over a period of a few weeks because there's usually some errors or discrepancies that we have to identify, discuss, and resolve. But this year, the first draft was acceptable without any additional iterations. I did have some questions, and I've gotten the answers to those questions already. So unofficially, Sikich hasn't kind of talked about what the next steps are before they produce the final report and deliver it to us. But if the past is any guide, the next steps would be they're going to ask us to draft the management discussion and analysis report as required by GASB. And then they'll be able to finalize the results for presentation at next month's board meeting and for filing with the county and the state. So we're looking pretty good there. On the monthly reports, you only have kind of a partial set of reports in there of limited usefulness because we haven't been able to open up fully the new fiscal year until the audit is completed. But kind of, you did get a copy of the appropriations ledger, the statement of revenues and disbursements, the outstanding unresolved items, and our cash and investment account balances. Working with those from a budget performance standpoint on the appropriations, now that the appropriations ordinance has been passed, the report reflects those figures. And overall, we are operating within budget on a year-to-date basis in most funds. And overall, there will be some adjustments yet to those figures because of some of the beginning of year entries that have not yet been made and can't be made until the audit's complete. On the revenue side, the revenue information is a little less helpful for comparing against the budget plan because we've not yet passed the levy ordinance. That won't happen until next month. But we can talk about year-to-date revenue, which is $72,500. This mostly was in the recreation fund due to program fees. This level is far below the typical levels of revenue we'd have at this time of year. For comparison, last year by October, we had received $385,000 in revenue. Obviously, the delay in receiving tax revenues is because the property tax bills have not yet gone out to the taxpayers. In terms of cash flow, again, we can't compare against the budget plan because we don't have a full budget yet. But since the start of the year, the district has spent $235,000 more than we have brought in revenue. So we're living off of our reserves. Again, comparing to this time last year, we had positive cash flow of $76,000. So in other words, our cash flow position is $311,000 worse at this time of the year than it was at this same point last year. And again, that's due to the property tax bill delay. I can't at this point report on assets and liabilities because we don't have beginning of the year balances yet. On the cash and investments, we don't have any banking relationships that are exceeding the FDIC limits, so we're looking good there. And on the outstanding unresolved items, there's no particular items for discussion at this point. The staff is, they know they've got a few items to work on, and Zhang has been diligently working to clear the most stale items. That's all I've got. I'm happy to entertain any questions or discussion on anything, but in terms of a report, there you have it.
Thank you, Jerry. Any commissioners have any questions or comments for Mr. Gibb? All right. Thank you. We'll move on to Ms. Salee.
Hi, thank you. All right, I'm going to start in October. I was out of town. I am no longer. I am back. At the end of September, we brought in the Evanston Police Department to do an Alice active shooter training with us. They talked to Brian and myself and a few of our staff, particularly staff members that are heavily involved in our summer programming and are around when we have large crowds and kids in camp. It was very informative. It was very helpful. We've taken some of what we learned and implemented some new safety protocols, including locks on both sides of various doors on the main floor, making the second floor and the basement keys accessible to staff for an emergency, and setting forth an emergency plan that will be communicated with all of our staff and integrated into our summer staff training. Latinx Heritage Month celebration and Bike the Ridge, both were two big events at the end of September. Very well attended. The city of Evanston hosted one of their movies in the parks of the Starlight movie series at Elks Park and combined it with the Latinx Heritage Month celebration. Bike the Ridge, also very successful. School of Rock performed at Bike the Ridge again this year and did a terrific job. Fall Frenzy was on Tuesday, October 18th from 4 to 6 at Ridgeville Park. I'll talk about that more in my November report. Great turnout for that as well, even though it was a very cold day. The Evanston Chamber of Commerce mashup, I did attend. I went with Mike Miro. Very cool event. I met lots of people. I tried to do some board recruitment since we have an election cycle coming up. Got to talk to a lot of people, tell them about Ridgeville and the kind of programs and opportunities we offer. And it was great. It was a really terrific event. All right, November. Fall Frenzy happened. It was a very, very chilly day. So we didn't have as many families as we normally do come out, but we had a really solid group. We did some pumpkin painting. We did an art project. We had a live DJ. It was a really fun day. We ended the night with some soul line dance led by Cynthia McFadden. Thank you to the staff and the crew for all their hard work to make that event a success. Our half-day workshops have begun. We had our first one on November 2nd. We have really great registration again this year. We're almost sold out. JC Herman, as per usual, did a fantastic job with the kids. We have a CIT that's also helping this year, so it allowed us to increase registration just a bit. I just returned from the IPRA Professional Development School. I'm still kind of buzzing from the whole thing. It was really incredible, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to go. And I'm excited to tell you more about that. I will write up a little separate report on that for you for next month, and sit down with Brian and Jung in the office and talk to them about what I've learned and how I can implement that, moving forward. And then finally, Commissioner Mitchell had asked me to do just a quick update on our park programs and facility use in this phase of the pandemic. So we're not actually 100% back to normal. We're still not holding any indoor events. We've moved everything outside. So we used to have an event, the Halloween Happening, that used to be an indoor event. We used to do a spring egg hunt that would begin indoors with like a little concert and stuff, and then we would go outside. Both of those programs have been kind of pivoted into larger scale outdoor events. So now we're doing a separate Fall Frenzy outside, and we're doing a spring cleanup. Sorry, I lost my place. Oh, Earth Day celebration and cleanup. So we do not currently have any indoor programs happening of that scale. Our Studio 908 classes remain at limited capacity. If they do meet indoors, and we require masking for some of those classes, usually at the request of the instructors and students. Some instructors and students continue to meet online or outdoors because they are not comfortable being inside the building. And I do have multiple instructors with legitimate health concerns and participants that have voiced some concerns to us about our ventilation abilities in the studio. We're not offering classes upstairs currently due to staff health concerns. I'm still conducting most of my personal meetings through Zoom, the exception being when I'm alone in the building. Camp, summer, winter, and spring is still only being offered at about 60 to 75% capacity. We take a higher number in the summer because they spend most of the day outside. Winter and spring camp are more limited because they're inside most of the day. Our partners as well are required to keep their numbers aligned with ours. And then we're still not offering indoor rentals of our facilities. And that's it.
Great, thank you, Natalie. Any commissioners have any questions or comments for Ms. Salee? Right, thank you. Moving on. JC, I know you're having issues before. Are you able to?
I am here now. My computer's working.
Great.
Hi,
And
everybody.
Alicia as well. Welcome.
I want to start off by apologizing for the typos in my report for October. I had sent out an earlier version of it than I had meant to. My November one is a little bit more cleaned up. I also, if you will look at the report, it is in a different format based on what we had spoken about at the September meeting. So you'll see that number one is the focus area addressed is that the Park District received a direct message through Facebook from a concerned citizen regarding the removal of the basketball hoops during a Ridgeville Park District event. The statement of impact is the citizen who sent the message shared their concern that race may be a factor in the removal of the basketball hoops, a concern the community has voiced in the past in relation to equitable treatment of basketball players in Ridgeville parks. This provides an opportunity for the Park District to review its policies around the use of basketball courts, as well as improve the communication with the community on how and why decisions around this are made. There are recommendations for resolution, and this is not an official recommendation in terms of we don't have our things ready to fully bring to you. I do have an update for you all with the November report, but this is where we were at in October. The Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee is preparing a recommendation to be presented at the November board meeting that will be probably in December, including recommendations for a statement to the public, including youth in the parks and RPD equity training, and developing suggestions for inclusive signage at the courts. This recommendation serves to help assure that there's consistency in understanding EDI concepts. Oh, sorry, that was a typo in there. So I'll have another update for you in the November report on what we discussed further with the complaint that came through the Facebook. Our second thing that we worked on, our second area of focus was strengthening the connection between the board and the Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee through their collaborative work and integration of the Equity Charter at RPD. The statement of impact is through the passing of the Equity Charter, the Park District made a commitment to the community to address issues of inequity. Clarifying the role of the committee in supporting the board to accomplish this work will benefit the community by contributing to an equitable and responsive Park District. Our recommendations for resolution, and Aisha will talk about this a little bit more when I finish. The Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee has revised its board reports in hopes of making decisions made by the committee more clear. The committee has requested the assistance of the equity consultant to review the equity charter and discuss the annual training for the committee and the board at the October Board of Commissioners meeting. She will also be available to field questions from the Board of Commissioners on this topic. So I will turn this over to Aisha now. She can answer, she can speak a little bit more to this and answer any questions you all might have.
Thanks, JC. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to review the full charter. I do want to invite everyone to do that. It's available on RPD's website. As we continue in the work, one of the things that's really important is that we are using that document as a grounding point and that we're referring back to it for a point of connection, a point of just general foundation when we're talking and thinking about the Rady Committee and its connection to the board. What I will do is I'll highlight some of the key goals in the charter. One of them is just that the Rady Committee was developed for the purpose of to support and expand the capacity of the board around issues that are related to racial equity, diversity, and inclusion. So it's just important to reground and remember that key piece, that the purpose of the committee is to serve the board in that way. And then just some of the general goals are to understand the historic and current drivers of social inequity. So thinking about all the isms, racism, sexism, heterosexism, ableism, ageism. There's many isms. And so thinking about all of that and the historical context for it, and also the drivers for it currently. Also trying to aid the board in identifying how RPD may contribute to inequities, and also how RPD can deconstruct inequities. So those, again, are some of the goals and drivers of the rating committee and the recommendations that come from the committee. And then also helping the board in working in partnership with the communities that we serve, especially as we think about things that have diversity, equity, and inclusion undertones, and that are specifically connected to racial equity, diversity, and inclusion. One of the things that is embedded in that charter as well is training, which JC touched on. So I am in the process of developing a training for the board as well as the committee. The goal is to use that training really as a point of connection. One of the growing edges for the committee and the board will be how we establish a working relationship, what that looks like, how we strengthen those connections. And so part of the purpose of that training will be talking about how we create the conditions for having conversations around issues of racial equity, diversity, and inclusion. Because with those conversations and discussion, those things can be charged because we all come in the room with bias. Structural racism is something that is embedded in our society. All of the other isms are embedded in our society. And so no one is immune from perpetuating some of these things. And so we have to come from a standpoint of both having, accepting positive intentions with things that we do, and also owning our impact and understanding how things that we do may be connected to systems that we want to deconstruct and make changes that will be best served for the RPD community. So that training will focus on creating those conditions, and then also touch on key terms that everyone should know, and then also how we integrate those terms into the work that we do. Are there any questions at all about anything that I've shared?
Aisha, that sounds really exciting. Do you have a timeline in mind for the training?
I know we have been in conversation, Natalie, JC, and myself, about the timeline, because if it's everyone together, that would look really different from if it is the board alone or the committee alone. So that's something that we're still working towards, identifying what would be the best format and the best timing of it. But it will be in it, you'll know enough in advance that it works out for everyone.
Great. Any other commissioners have any questions or comments?
I have a comment real quick.
Yeah.
Aisha, thank you. Just so everybody knows, my Youth in the Park staff of 5 gentlemen, 4 work at Evanston High School during the academic year, and all 4 go through training annually at the high school. The 5th is retired, so but the training video or system or manual will help us every year as we can incorporate that into our spring meetings right before we kick off summer session, our orientation. Be fantastic.
Brian, I think that's a great point, is the majority of our staff are part-time. We have a lot of camp counselors, youth in the parks, instructors who teach, one or
right,
not a lot of classes. So yeah, I'd be real interested in how we could incorporate our charter, but also our equity values into all kind of training and onboarding.
It would be awesome.
Brian, thank you for sharing that. I hadn't realized that the Youth in the Park staff, I guess I knew that they were employed by ETHS, but I didn't think about how they probably went through equity training. I do also think it's important that they go through equity training through the park district to make sure that they are, reflecting the voice that we want them to. And then Commissioner Mitchell, to let you know, I did bring up, at least in terms of summer camp, I did bring up to Natalie that we need to figure out how to get this into the summer camp training. I'm really happy that these conversations are being had, and especially moving towards next summer, this puts us in a position to put things in place between now and then. I think that's fantastic, and I appreciate that. Are there any other questions around the October report? Okay, I will move into November. So it's the same focus area addressed. It's we are continuing to discuss the message that the Park District received through the direct message through Facebook. So what we've spoken about, which I got to be honest with you, I'm really excited about. This is kind of what we've come up with to address, this issue that seems to come up over and over again with the Park District and the basketball hoops. So one piece is this part of training and education for the board and staff, including Youth in the Parks, and the committee that Aisha just spoke about. We also are preparing a statement to the public. There was a draft included with the report. The areas that are highlighted are areas that we are still discussing and trying to finalize and try to get to a point where we're happy with that wording. We are hoping to bring that to you in the December meeting as an official recommendation. We are discussing posting of signage at the basketball court that not only welcomes players, but states the Park District's policies and provides contact information for the Park District if anyone needs that. It would be something similar to what's up for the skateboarding currently. We are looking into distributing surveys as a way to connect with the basketball players and include their voices. Something that stuck out to me as we were having these discussions, I was remembering Dr. Effiam's recommendation that when we have these discussions, we need to make sure that the people who are going to be impacted are at the table. So we want to make sure that we are opening up those seats for them to have their voices heard. We want to invite community members to share their experiences and opinions around the use of basketball courts. We're still kind of discussing exactly what format that would come in. We want to offer opportunities for community members to gather and read and discuss articles related to perceptions of Black basketball players in public parks. The person who sent the direct Facebook message also sent along some articles. We also are going to do some research to see if there's any other articles that we want to include and see if there's any interest in the community discussing those. This one I'm also particularly excited about, finding some community partners to collaborate with to display multimedia artwork in relation to race and basketball. In our last meeting, I had labeled this as one of my dreams that were too big, and Natalie immediately pointed out that we already have some of those partners in place, so that's something that we might actually be able to make happen without as much work as I was kind of imagining. And then I do also want to remind you all that or maybe you don't know, the basketball tournament that RPD used to have was postponed because of COVID. In the process of getting everything up and running, it's been one of the later programs to get up and running, but that will return next year. And we are hoping that will be another awesome opportunity to connect with basketball players and remind the community how important the use of our courts really are. Any questions on the November report?
Where does that basketball tournament usually happen? On which courts?
I'll let Natalie answer that.
Okay. All right.
Or maybe Brian can.
It's
Ridgeville Park.
Yeah, it's usually led by our Youth in the Parks team, and then we buy pizzas, so it's a big pizza party, and it's fun.
And when do we think that'll be, this year or next year?
We typically do it in July. This is the first summer that I was able to bring back some of our summer sports, and that was challenging. It took me some time to find coaches for that. So it just is one of those things that's taking some time to get back to the park, but usually happens in July.
Late July.
Late July, yeah. And, that can change. We could do more than one,
Any other questions or comments for Ms. Herman or Ms. Robinson? All right, moving on to our agenda, I see discuss board representation on the Ready Committee. JC, or it looks like Natalie, you have that under your name.
Yes. Commissioner Rogers had asked me to put this on the agenda. He's resigned from the Ready Committee, and we are looking for some board representation. So if anybody is interested in joining us, you can reach out to me or to JC, and we can, get you all set up with the Zoom link and catch up on what's going on. But our next meeting will be next Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Everyone's welcome to come, but we would like we are technically part of the charter is to have one commissioner, at least one on the board or on the committee.
All right, any questions or comments regarding that agenda item? Okay, moving on. Thank you, Natalie, Aisha, and JC. Next on the agenda is old business. It's an agenda item with my name on it, discussing update on garden space. Brian, could you start us off with that discussion?
Sure. We had a scheduled meeting last Thursday to walk the 908 Seward Gardens. And I came down with COVID Thursday morning. I'm feeling pretty good right now, but I just want to tell everybody out there, no joke. 3.5 days of really a lot of bed rest and sore throat, and it's rough stuff. But anyways, so we're going to reschedule that for next week and walk that area. And you all know that when a half garden at Elks Park is not renewed, it'll turn into 2 quarter gardens. When a full garden is not renewed, it'll turn into 4 quarter gardens. So we'll increase the amount of runners, they'll have less space. And then long-term, and it's a budget item for the next budget, is potentially putting more gardens at Elks. That's it.
Where would those gardens go at Elks?
They would go, the tentative plan is they would go in the southeast section. There's 2 problems with any new gardens. They need water and need a fence. So that's the big expense, getting water to that area. It would be, if you're familiar with Elks, it would be deep right field of the baseball diamond. I mean, deep right field. No kid's going to hit one into the garden. If they do, they're going up. They're doing great, but that's the tentative plan.
I took a tour with Natalie, and isn't that area under a tree?
No, there's a bunch of trees on the far east side along the train tracks, but right in front of the trees is the area we're talking about, right before it slopes upward.
I see.
Okay, and then Brian, to address 2 of the concerns I heard in public comment. One was from Tom. Didn't like the idea that garden plots would only be used for 1 year and then you'd cycle back in. It sounds to me like I'm hearing that folks who have a garden plot will be able to use that garden plot the following year.
That's the way our contract is now. When you're notified of renewal, you had it the year before, so you have first chance to renew it. If you don't renew it, we sell it down the waiting list. That's the way it is right now.
Right. I've heard a lot of community support, gardener support. Folks who use the gardens are. It seems important to the voices I've heard that they'd be able to use the same plot every year.
They put a lot of time, effort, and money into their garden plot. Several gardeners build raised beds on their own, and that's pretty expensive. If you've been to the lumber yard lately, it's not cheap. So that's the way it is right now.
And then another concern I heard from Gwen was, is there enough space to get any more garden beds in the garden at Seward?
At Seward, to be determined, but yes, in my opinion, yes. They would be raised beds. We would build them. They'd be a certain size. And if we don't build them for gardeners, I would roll the dice and say Garden to Table would like to expand at some point in time and build them for themselves. But it would be crowded. There's no doubt about it, but there's water there. And I believe there's space, albeit limited, but there's space.
And Gwen also had a concern regarding kind of a gathering space for the Garden to Table group. They currently use a picnic table or a couple of picnic tables.
Yeah, they would have to move, and you'd have to walk 25 feet across the driveway to the garden, to the picnic tables. But that's all to be determined. It's a chance to increase gardens next year. If it's not, after our tour and all the reasons for or against come out, we'll have a nice report next month, and we'll see what we can do or not do.
Right. Thank you, Brian. Natalie, do you have something to add?
I just had a question for Brian. I'm sorry, did you already say, did we reschedule that meeting? Do we have a date yet?
Negative.
Okay.
We'll schedule that soon.
Okay.
And thank you for joining us tonight, Brian.
Well, I'm doing fine. I sleep good, so very tired.
Any other comments or concerns, questions for Mr. Rosinski regarding that agenda item? All right, moving on to new business, discuss outreach for the open board positions, April 2023 consolidated election. There are 3 board seats up in the April 2023 election. Natalie, I'll ask you to maybe join me as our secretary. She handles, our corporate secretary, handles the election paperwork. So could you talk us through the process one needs to go through to get on the ballot? And then maybe
Sure.
you and I could also talk about the seminar we've been going to.
Yeah, for sure. So I am the local election official, but I'm certainly not an expert. So even on the form, it does say, make sure that you call Cook County to just double check that everything you're doing is appropriate and you're getting all the right things filled out. But candidates would need to file a statement of economic interest with Cook County. And then you need to gather signatures, and the signatures, it has to be a certain percentage of the last time there was an election for these positions. So, and those numbers are all in the actual thing. It's on our website. I've emailed it out. It's everywhere, but I'm happy to send it to you all again. But it's 65 signatures. I do have a copy of the petition form. So if you needed that, I can print those for you. I have the state candidate guide for the 2023 consolidated election in the office. I'm happy to make that for you as well. And the due date for all of these things is, I believe, the week of December 12th. You have to bring it to me and I'll notarize it for you. And then I take all of that information and I submit it to Cook County. So again, that information is all on our website. If you have any questions, you want to talk to me about it one-on-one, happy to do it, happy to print stuff for you. And yeah. And we do have 3 seats. Did you say that already? I'm sorry, Matt.
I did. There's three open spots. And so Mick and I will remain and still have time left on our term. Commissioners Braun, Rogers, and Anton. Their terms are up, and if they're interested, they can get on the ballot.
Yeah.
Right. I put the link to the election paperwork in the chat, and it's on the website under the governance section. Natalie, do you want to talk about the YWCA seminar we've been going to?
Yeah, I wasn't there this week because I was at the IPRA PDS, but I'm gonna watch that. I got the recording. I think it's been pretty useful in terms of
what's the seminar?
What we're doing, the board diversification. We're doing a board diversification and recruitment seminar workshop with the YW Equity Institute. It's 4 Tuesdays. So we've had 3 now. Next week will be our last one. But they've made some really excellent points about looking at your current board and figuring out who's there in order to really identify what you're missing. So, and sometimes we don't know that. And we're talking about, in these workshops, we're talking about equity as a whole. So it's not only talking about gender and race, but we're talking about like socioeconomic status and ability and, orientation, all of those things. So there was a survey that they gave us to send to our board. I hope everybody's had an opportunity to fill it out. I won't actually know if you have or not because I don't get those results. It goes straight to them. So if you haven't had an opportunity, please do. It's short, but that'll give us a really clearer idea of what diversification means specifically to our board here at Ridgeville. So we've talked a lot about that, and then we've talked a lot about how to make those kinds of connections in your community to recruit to your target audience, essentially, who you really want to come out and learn about this opportunity and get excited about running for, in our case, running for the board. I think that's a little bit different for us versus some of the folks there that have nonprofit boards. You have to go through this daunting election cycle, and I know that can be really scary and just a little bit overwhelming. So that's another reason I want to make this super simple for folks that are interested and be as helpful as I can with it. But so that's what I've taken from it. They've given us some specific examples of how to reach out. They talked about maybe you do like a social meet and greet, maybe like some kind of an event where some of your board and staff come out and people can come and just get to know you and ask questions. Talked about putting together like a recruitment package. So like a letter from our board president about what it's like to be on the board, what's expected of you, information about Ridgeville, the brochure, all of the information and things that you need to actually be a candidate, putting that together and then taking it to specific locations within your community for recruitment efforts. So those are just a couple things, but it's been really useful, I think, so far.
Ms. Robinson, do you have something to add?
I had a question about the training. Does the training also talk about how to sustain a diverse board as a piece of it? So the recruitment is one side and then sustaining a diverse board is the other side of it.
I believe that's what they covered this week, Matt, right? We talked about like onboarding the board and training and, right?
Yes. I also wasn't there this week. One of the beauties of it is it's recorded so you can watch after the fact. I had to miss, I was doing election work. It was also election day. So yes, it is one of the factors they talk about. The training, I think it's been great. We are 3 weeks into a 4-week, an 8-hour training, and kind of to echo what Natalie said is Ridgeville's a little different than most of the folks there because most are nonprofit or corporate boards, where here where you'd be inviting somebody to join the board, where here you're inviting somebody to run for an election, and so it's a bigger ask. Also, it's a 6-year commitment, 6-year unpaid commitment. That's also a big ask. It's my understanding of the Illinois state law is if the board wanted to change its terms from 6 years to 4 years, we could. It's one of the legal options available. I could see some benefits in that. One is just that commitment. It's easier to know what you're going to be doing for the next 4 years as opposed to 6. The downside is we don't usually get a ton of candidates running, and having to run for election is a lot of work. So we don't want to discourage folks from doing that. Finally, if anybody knows anybody that would be interested, I would be happy to talk to anybody. I think Natalie and I will kind of put out some invitations, open the conversation. I really encourage anybody here to invite any eligible folks to continue the conversation with us. Yeah, Brian.
Natalie, offhand, do you know the date that paperwork and signatures are due?
I believe the week of December 12th. I will look at it right now and I will give you a 100% sure answer. Hold on one moment.
That's okay, but that's a month away and we need to get busy. And I don't know if Commissioner Braun, Rogers, or Anton are all decided if they're running or not running, but it would be a nice courtesy if we could hear yes or no at some point in time in the near future. Because we got to start knocking on doors, or we need a full board is what we need.
Brian, I intend to run. This is Anton.
Thank you.
December 19th.
December 19th. All right.
It's a Monday, December 19th by 5 p.m. We will be in the office that day from 8 to 5 for you to bring it in and we'll write you a receipt.
You can bring it in earlier too.
You can bring it in whenever you like.
Yeah, you don't have to wait till the 19th.
I will be there. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I thought you meant in the morning.
All right. Any further comments, questions on this agenda item? All right. We are moving on to discussion of virtual meetings. If anybody was here or saw the last meeting, we had some conflict whether or not we were going to stay remote or not. I said at that time that I would reach out to the 12 folks who regularly attend the Ridgeville board meetings, ask for a straw poll. I did that. The poll had 2 questions. Do you want to go in person or do you want to stay remote? The results were 8 folks wanted to stay remote on Zoom. 3 folks wanted to go in person. 1 person was neutral and abstained. So 8-3-1 was the final tally. And there was a second question of, do you have any apprehension returning because of health concerns, returning in person? And 4 of the 12 respondents stated yes. And 1 other person reached out to me and said that they have a family member at home who was particularly vulnerable at this time for this meeting. Having heard that consensus voice, we will stay remote for November and December, and we will reevaluate for 2023. See what the legal options are available. I'm open to going with the group consensus. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding remote meetings? All right. Moving on to the call of the commissioners. Julie.
Nothing. I'm usually first, so sorry. Nothing.
All right, Morale?
Oh, thank you.
Rogers?
Nothing.
Anton?
Is this where I would bring up an idea I have that I would like to propose, or is that, I'm not sure what the protocol is here. Would I bring that up to Natalie and Brian first?
So if you want to put something on the agenda, you can ask Natalie too. If you have an idea you want to share with the board, feel free. This is kind of free jazz.
Yeah, I would really like to see if there's some way we could put some outdoor chess in one of the parks or a couple of the parks. And just want to talk about that some more. So I could talk to Natalie about putting it on the agenda, or Brian, how we go about it.
You sure can, Diana.
Okay, I will.
Anything else, Diana?
No, that's it.
All right. I've gotten a lot of real nice comments about the Imaginary Games program in the park. And wanted to pass those along. That's all I got. All right, moving on to citizen comments. Are there any citizens who would like to make a comment? Hearing none, I would move to adjourn. Is there a second?
Morel seconds.
Do you want to just do a show of hands? Would you like to adjourn?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
Hearing 4 yeses and my own affirmative. The meeting is hereby adjourned.
Everybody have a great Thanksgiving.
Yes, you too.
Brian.
Feel better, Brian.
I will. Thank you.
Brian.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.